Welcome everybody, my name is Daniel from weLaunch and today I'm going to show you how you can be GDPR compliant with your WordPress site when you are using the Google Tag Manager. I have prepared a small demo here with the Tag Manager and I will going to show you how to use our plugin and how to set up services so in order you will be compliant with the Google Consent Mode version 2. Very important to know that when you do not comply until March 2024, then some scripts and some tagging and analytics will no longer work. For example, when you're using Google AdWords remarketing tool or something like that for your campaigns, then this will no longer transfer all the data from the user. So you need to adjust the tagging, and this is what we do now. When you not change anything and still keep old versions, etc., then only basic data will be transferred, but of course the analytics will still work in the future. I'm going to show you how to use the Tag Manager when you're not using the Tag Manager. For example, when you have it built in with our services directly, then it's very easy to switch. You just go into our plugin and then into services. You check Google AdWords and then you check is Google AdWords service and you will be compliant with the new tool. However, if you're using Google Tag Manager, then I'm going to show you how to use that. So very first of all, I will prepare also a container that you can import. So when you go to import container here, for example, in Google Tag Manager, you can choose a container file and import this. I will prepare and put it into my guide so you can just import everything that I have set up here and you can use it for future projects. For those who are not familiar with importing containers or exporting containers, I'm going to show you how to configure it manually now. And this is how I'm going to into Workspace now. And in the Google Tag Manager workspace, you see the tags, the triggers and the variables. I'm going to in the tags now and see that we are using Google AdWords. These are the first two here, the remarketing and the conversion linker. We're using Google GA4, so Analytics version 4, and we're using a Meta Facebook pixel. These are also the containers that I'm going to export into the demo that you can import, and they are compliant with the new Consent Mode 2. These tags are triggered when, I can show it here, when the trigger, for example, for analytics is fired, and they are configured with our new WordPress plugin. If I open this trigger here, for example, you see a custom event. The custom event is called consent status, and it triggers on only some custom events, which is this GDPR variable called Google Analytics, and it does not equal false. The variable that I have chosen here is in the folder variables, and then at the bottom user defined variables, Google Analytics, and you see here the name of the variable is consents.googleanalytics, and it is set to default false because of course everybody should comply and say yes, I accept cookies before this is set to true, so it is set to default by false. And I'm going to show you how it works now. So if I am here in my WordPress website and I want to use the Tag Manager now, then I open the settings of our GDPR plugin, I go into services, and then I enable the Google Tag Manager here. So I click on, and now I have to put in the code here to have the Tag Manager installed. So I paste the head code into the head code settings, and I paste in the body code into the body code settings. That means the Google Tag Manager will be rendered on your site every time, and it is required to run every time because it will of course check only when the variables that I have shown before are set to true. And it works like this. When I go into my website now and I refresh it. Then I go into the workspace and click on the preview button on the top right here. Say I want to connect to my demo page now. You see here at the bottom right that the Tag Manager is connected. And this means I can now start debugging, and I also see that the Tag Manager that I just placed into my settings are rendered. Means the Google Tag Manager script that I put into settings is working. And what I see now here is, when I go into the debug bar, I see that some tags are fired. And you see, for example, the Google Analytics 4 is fired because you see the firing triggers here. Event matches consent status. This is the event that we fire when a consent status has changed. For example, if someone has accepted or declined analytics. And the variable GDPR Google Analytics is not false. Because it is true, the user has accepted and he wants to be tracked and traced. You also see in the variable, in the data layer here, when I go into the page, data layer, you see here all the consents. The event consent status I showed before, and here you see all the services and the consents the user has given. And you may ask yourself, where does it come from? How do you know Google Analytics is set to true? Google Analytics, the consents, is the same name that we use for the services here. So these are all your services. Let's say I use Google Analytics. And the same name that applies here is the same that applies in the data layer consents. And it is set to true because when I go into my site, Analytics, I see Google Analytics is set to true. So it's very basic. Let me remove this script here now, I trash it for you and show you how to create an own service. I go into a new GDPR service and I call it Google GA4. I give it another name because I want to show you how it works now. And you can leave it here empty or write something like we track your data for analytics. And it's important to choose that this service here is a Google Analytics service. So you check the checkbox, is Google Analytics service. And the rest can be kept out, like the head script tags and body script tags. We can also set here the GA cookies that I used, GDFID, and put the service into Analytics and publish it. If I now go back into my site and go into the Privacy Center and Analytics, you will see the new service here is called GA4. And it is not set to true because I did not enable it or allowed to track my data, of course. Now we need to change the event variable because if I go to variables, in my Tag Manager and choose the Google Analytics, you see here that the name of the variable is still Google Analytics. But when we track it and trace it, then you will still see, if I reload the page, that the new variable will be called Google GA4 only. That means I go here in and replace the variable with Google GA4, save it, and then I will go to the preview. I will reload this page now, and I see if I go into Analytics, GA4 is not enabled. I will enable it now. And then in the data layer, you will see Google Analytics is set to true. So this is basically how it works. So the name of the service is the same as the variable, consents, and the name of the service. And when this is set to true, then we have a trigger here that is calling the Google Analytics on a custom event if the custom event consent status has changed, and Google Analytics, the variable is not false, so it is true, we can say, then it will run the Google Analytics for script. If we go into the script now, or the tag, you see the Google tag, consent status, firing triggers is the custom event we just showed here. Very important, if you import our container or demo container, please change the tag IDs, because I have just put in 99999 here, and you need to change it to your own tag ID, of course. Same applies for Facebook Pixel. Here's always 999999. Please change that. And also in the remarketing tool, there's also a 999 here. Furthermore, it's important into the services that you check here is Google Analytics. And when your service is AdWords, for example, then please make sure your service is checked with is Google AdWords or remarketing service. Because only in that case you will see in the consents here that the new consents that Google is requiring since March are applied and granted. For example, I only enabled analytics. You see the on-page default is denied. But because I consented to Google Analytics 4 and the Google Analytics 4 service, the consent is now set to granted. So you're totally compliant now with that, and Google will send also the data to remarketing correctly, and everything will be working. So, very long story short, if you use the tag manager, then please use the demo import container that I created, or make sure you set up variables that are listening to the consent underscore status event. If you are not using the tag manager, then you can go into the Google AdWords and enable this checkbox. But please make sure when you're not using the tag manager that to put in the script tags here. That was it. If you have any questions in order how to comply to, or if everything is not working, or you need more information, then just drop me an email or send a comment here on YouTube, and I will reply to that as soon as possible. Thanks for listening.